All right, folks, that's it. We are live. Thank you for being here. This is Wednesday, February the 18th. I'm Pepper. This is the Godly Trading live trading room. Thank you for being here. Uh, as we always do, I want to talk about faith today. We do everything here based on biblical principles. And wanted to talk about Hebrews 12:1 as we get started. And by the way, anytime you're reading a verse of scripture that says, therefore, I think my mom was the one who mentioned, always ask yourself, what is the therefore? Therefore. And it points back to Hebrews 11, which is the chapter of faith. Now, by faith, we understand these things. By faith, Abel. By faith, Enoch. By faith, Noah. By faith, Abraham. On and on and on. By faith, all of these heroes of faith did things in faith. And then it says, okay, so since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, in other words, because what's my denomination? I am a Baptist. Around here, you call it Baptist. You people in the north, we call us Southern Baptists. I had a preacher once. I asked him, why do we have different denominations? And he said, because of man's inability to correctly interpret the word of God. We all have an idea and run and form a group around that. And denominations are relatively unimportant, except when they are. So, because of all of these reasons, right? But since we're surrounded by all of these witnesses, all of these people who live their life in faith, let us lay aside every weight. Wouldn't you love to lay aside the weight that is holding you down in your trading? Let us lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily ensnares us, which the best explanation I have ever, what I think about the Church of Christ, I don't think about the Church of Christ on a regular basis, but I have no opinion of the Church of Christ, to be honest, other than I don't know anything about them. It says, let us run with endurance. All right, by the way, the sin which so easily ensnares us, the one that I've heard, is doubt. Doubt is the sin which so easily ensnares all of us. It's so easy to fall into doubt. But let's lay aside every weight and doubt and run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Do I believe in the Holy Spirit? Yes. Third person of the Trinity. So when it's coming to your trading, keep on keeping on. That's what this says. Run with endurance the race that is set before us. All of us here who are trading, we have a race set before us. We have this thing that we do called trading. And we're going to be doing it probably for the rest of our lives. So it is our part to get up every morning and run that race with endurance. What about speaking in tongues? I've heard people do it. I myself, my wife claims I do that every night as I'm going to bed. I know it's a joke. I shouldn't joke, but I don't have an opinion other than the fact that in the book of Acts, the disciples weren't speaking in random tongues. They were speaking in the languages of the people in the crowd. So there you go. All right. Today I wanted to talk. Sorry, I said that, and the entire audience dropped to zero. That's interesting. Funny, in my opinion. I said that today I want to talk about trading robots and what happens when they go haywire. So I'm going to get there in a minute. First thing, let's take a quick run through and look at the various strategies that we're trading. This, by the way, this account that you're looking at, this is my trading robot that did go haywire last night. I've got a trading robot. It does its thing, and it last night didn't do what it was supposed to do. So first things first, look at the markets. Boy, the overall S&P has just been going. I drew this box. It's been going sideways. I drew this box quite some time ago, and you can see it's still just moving sideways through this. Again, great if you're a range trader. I did want to update you on my long-term, like month trading plan, which is the options that I sell. I have currently 5 options that I have sold on plug. And as of right now, if this option were to expire today, I would be the proud owner of 500 shares of plug, in which case I would just turn around and sell calls on it up here. So it's not today. I've still got almost an entire month to get there. We'll see what happens. Frank has not been having a good day. And what's interesting is here, this is Frank, and Frank is had a fantastic June, and so far, excuse me, June. Oh, bless my heart. January, I was up 5%, and now here in February, halfway through, and I'm barely up 0.25%. This is what happens. Everything is why I love patterns and God's principles. Everything happens in waves, and so Frank was riding the crest of the wave and ended January, not July, into January on a high note, and then naturally would be coming into a down trough. So right now you can see we are about 0.8. This is a $10,000 account, so $80 represents 0.8%. So we're almost 1% down in drawdown right now on Frank, and that's okay. This is going to take some time to pass this prop firm challenge. If you look at the trades that we do have open here, where is Forrest? Here is Frank. Look at these trades. Oil, oh my goodness. Oil had quite the turnaround today, didn't it? Oil is positive. Let me make sure that's true. XTI. Yes, oil is positive right now. Boy, it had quite the turnaround today. Aussie CAD still a little bit up. Aussie Swiss a little bit down. Euro, all these trades have been around for a while. A little bit down. Excuse me, a little bit positive. It's a short. Euro Kiwi. Oh my goodness. Euro Kiwi had a big negative day today. What do you do when you look at your trade and you see that it was heading in the right direction? Now it's had this big move against you. I don't do anything. I set my trade. I planted my seed, and whatever happens, I'm following my rules. And my rules in this case, they do nothing. Kiwi Swiss. Oh my goodness. So the Kiwi Swiss have. Now, of course, this is probably a direct result. If I were to look at the calendar, I mentioned the Reserve Bank of New Zealand had an interest rate announcement last night, and I bet you anything that is what is driving that. So that was Tuesday night, and the Reserve Bank of New Zealand is right here. Okay, and this is what happens. This is one of the reasons why I avoid this type of trade. I don't get into a trade if there's an interest rate announcement, because even when the bank does what everyone expects it to do, you can still have a massive reaction to it. So the Kiwi had a big negative day today. So this is what's driving almost all of my my drawdown today, and that's okay. This strategy is going to do what it's going to do. I had my setup. I followed my rules. Whatever happens is in God's hands. So as you can see, we are currently down 8.8% there. Over on Forest, as you can see, we're still where we were, which is a blank screen and logged out. Forest just hasn't moved much at all. Where is my trading view? Let's switch over to Forest. And I've only got 2 trades open, Euro Swiss. I take that back. Look at this. Euro Swiss is still hurts. Oh no, absolutely, Robert. It hurts in the way that a hurricane approaching your house for a week. We used to live on the East Coast. Hurts. It's like, oh, okay, it's gonna hit my house. Okay, so you have to spend when you're watching this happen. Euro key. Hang on, nope, I'm over here on the wrong one. Back to Frank. When you're watching, you're like, oh, it's negative. It's gonna stop out. The next day, oh, it's negative. It's gonna stop us. And then it eventually does. It's like watching the hurricane slowly approach your house and then hit your house. Yeah, it hurts. It hurts and continues to hurt. Absolutely. Two open trades here on Forest. CAD Swiss just slowly sinking down in the positive territory, and Euro US. All of the gains that it had made are gone as of today, and it's slightly negative. It happens. This is swing trading. It's a whole different mindset, but it's one that I enjoy. All right, now we're done with all of that. I want to talk to you about the robot that I have trading for me, trading Forest on gold, and what it did last night. So, as you can see, let me scroll. How do I scroll? Here we go. So, 2 nights ago, I had a trade and hit first take profit and second take profit. And then, so that was 3 nights ago. Then 2 nights ago, I had a trade and it hit first take profit here, and then hit the trailing stop. That's fine. Last night, I don't know if you can see. Let me do this. if you can see these arrows right here, this happens every once in a while. Let me show you in the journal or the history. There we go. So if you can look and see this one right here, it says 0299. I don't know if you can see that or not, especially if you're watching on portrait mode. The comment is what is how this robot tracks which is position 1 and which is position 2. Because what it does is it says, hey, when there's only one position, that means we've closed out the other position, right? So when TP1 closes, all we've got left is the second position. So it knows that it's checking every tick. It's checking. When I've only got one position open, by definition, be the second position. And I, the robot, know to exit that trade at the 30-period moving average as my trailing stop. Well, here's what happened. This happens every once in a while. And I've talked to, and I'll tell you who the coder is. I've talked to the coder, and it is a glitch that pops up every once in a while. It entered these two trades. Position number 1. And for whatever reason, the broker didn't create position number 2 quickly enough. So it entered position number 1. Position number 1 opened. The robot goes out and looks and goes, oh, I'm the only position that's open. That must mean that the first position has already hit TP1 and closed out. Now it's my job to exit at the trailing stop. So I'm going to get out at the 30-period moving average. Do you remember? I shouldn't laugh, but it is kind of funny. Do you remember the strategy, what it calls for as far as the entry? The entry is the 30-period moving average. So it got in when it hit the 30. It looked around, thought, I'm the only one here. I need to exit at the 30, and it exited immediately. And then the broker decides to fill the order on what would have been the first position. So here's the end result. I got one position that hit my first take profit. That was, let's call it 1,500 points because I can't do the math in my head. So 1,500 points. This thing is set, and that's $300. This thing is set to exit at 1-to-1 and 3-to-1. So 3-to-1 off of 1,500 points would have been 4,500 points. Could we have gotten 4,500 points? Well, it actually went up 8,000 points. So, yeah, if it had not glitched, I would have gotten out at my first take profit, and I would have gotten out at my second take profit, never would have hit my trailing stop, and that would have been an extra $1,500 that is not in my account because my broker took an extra couple of milliseconds to fill the order. And during those couple of milliseconds, my robot did its thing and as a result, it's not a glitch. It's just life. It just happens. And so this is what I'm talking about when it comes to trading with an automated system. You cannot just set it and forget it. You have to be the manager for that position. You have to be the manager of your strategies. So every day I come and I watch it. I make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. And in this case, you could argue that the robot did what it was supposed to do. You could argue that, okay, you're sending two positions to the broker, and one of them just got filled a little too slowly. And it just so happened that the position that got filled slowly was the first one, not the second. It was the one that had the comment 1 instead of the comment 2. And as a result, this happened. And yeah, I'm laughing about it. I'm out $1,500. You know, it's what, 1.5%. Today could have been a fantastic day, as opposed to just a good day. So this is why I stress so much live testing your systems. And in our training program, there's a procedure of back test and then live test on demo and then live test on some real world account that has a small amount of money in it, or live test on a prop firm account, which is what this is. This is Darwin X, the prop firm. They're not really a prop firm. We're talking about prop firms tonight in our open forum group. To make sure that all of these life situations that you haven't even thought about get a chance to pop up. It's one of the reasons that I highly recommend back testing an entire year, even if you are scalping, even if you are trading the 5-minute chart. And you say, well, I don't want to back test a year. Why would I back test a year? Because during the course of a year, things happen that you're not going to notice during the course of 3 months. So what do I do from here? Well, I go back to the coder of this. And I'm not going to go into the detailed explanation, but I actually have a human being coded this one originally for me. By the way, I'm going to be emphatic here, so I'm going to switch screens. For all of you out there who trade manually, again, I'm not trying to sell you on our training program. I'm just illustrating what we teach in our training program. One of the things that we say is, regardless of the fact that you're going to trade manually, and you're going to need to trade manually at first, still create the fully automated system so that you can back test appropriately, so that you have the best tool available to you for back testing. And the other main reason to create your system, to have your system coded into an algorithm, is because the process of you explaining your system to a coder forces you to think through your system in ways that you wouldn't otherwise do. It would be like trying to explain a trading chart and your activities on that trading chart to someone else who's blind, someone who's never seen a trading chart in their life. And you're trying to explain using the English language or whatever language you speak, what it is they're trying to see. It just forces you to think through, because here's what happened. During the course of me talking to my coder who was in Vietnam, and English is not his primary language, nor is he a trader. Having two languages, right? The English language and the trading languages that I had to work my way through to answer his questions, because he would say, hey, what about this? Well, what happens when this happens? What about that? What about that? Number one, he asked me questions I hadn't thought about yet. But number two, I had to clarify so that he would understand and he wouldn't misunderstand. And that made me a better trader. That made me understand my system so much better. Now, these days, I no longer use a human being to code for me. I use AI. I don't actually use an AI. I use two AIs. I have one that operates as the computer engineer, and I have one that operates as the coder, and one of them is in charge of the other, and they talk to one another. Frankly, it's frightening. It is Terminator, conditions here where you've got two robots talking to themselves, trying to complete a task that I have given one of them. But anyway, even talking to AI, it forces you to fully understand. So, highly recommend to anybody out there, get your system at least written down to the point that you've answered every question. So you can hand your system on a piece of paper. All right, here's my system. I've got it written down. And I'm going to hand it to my brother-in-law, who's a bricklayer and has never traded in his life. And he can go click the buttons successfully using my system. That is the level of detail that you need to think through. And hey, it helps when you have a problem like this. This glitch that has happened is a benefit. So now I can go back to my AI robots, my coders, and I can say, here's what happened. How can we avoid this situation in the past without changing my strategy, without changing the algorithm so much that we break it? And that's all of that just makes the system better. It makes the algorithm better. It makes me better as a trading algorithm manager. So I'm glad that happened. I've got some work to do to make sure this has happened twice. This is the second time it happened. And the first time it happened, I thought, what are the odds it's ever going to happen again? Well, it happened 2 months ago. So apparently it happens every 2 months. And yeah, I missed out on 1.5% gain today as opposed to, today would have been, what was today? Hang on. Let's take a look. Today was a 1/3% gain as opposed to a 1.5% gain. Well, that hurts, but I'm still going to be not sharing my screen is what I'm still going to be doing. Today was a 1/3% gain instead of a 1.5% gain. I'd have been up 5% for the week otherwise. It's just numbers. It's just pride. It doesn't matter if it's 5% or 3.27% this week. All that matters is I follow my rules, follow my system. I'm going to go out. I'm going to make it better. I'm going to fix it. Okay. Does anybody have any questions, by the way, on either the system or on the automation of the system? Whether you're live here with us in the chat or watching this on replay, drop me a comment if you have any questions about that. I want to go through, show you, as I'm waiting on questions to come in, I'm going to go through and show you this strategy on the time frame that its creator describes as the best one out there. So back to sharing my screen. There's the button. And I'm going to go down to the 1 minute chart. Nope, no, I'm not. I'm going to go down to the 1 hour chart. This is where this strategy lives and where it works the best. And we're just going to walk through what this strategy is all about. So again, it is, the reason I call it forest is because it's simple. It is dead simple. It is one of 3 dead simple strategies that I trade, right? Frankenstein, Forrest Gump, and Bob the Builder, or at least the AI generated non-copyright infringement versions of those. So Forrest, which is simple, Frank is dead simple. Anyway, Forrest just says, hey, we are going to trend trade and we're going to enter that trend on a pullback. Okay, that's fantastic. By the way, every single trade is just answering 5 questions. All right, what's the trend? How are we going to play the trend? All right, how do we define a pullback? Where's our entry going to be? How do we define a pullback and where our entry is the same question? Where's our stop loss? Where's our take profit? Those 5 questions. That's every trade in 5 simple questions. So we define trend in this particular case by having 2 moving averages, a fast and a slow. And when the fast is above the slow, we're in an uptrend. And when the fast is below the slow, we're in a downtrend. Dead simple. All right. Now we're going to confirm that a trend is happening by putting a dot below or above every candle that puts in a new high or a new low, right? A trend is a series of higher highs or a series of lower lows. That's what a trend is. So in this case, we had a trend change right here. We were long, now we're short. So we wait for that first confirmation that the downtrend is actually happening. So we got a red dot. Once you see a red dot, then you know to enter that trade on a pullback. And that pullback is defined as touching the 30-period moving average. This is, oh dear, I moved that. I didn't mean to. This is why I like to teach Forrest more than I like to teach Frank. Frank is easier. Frank is more simple. Frank is 2 things. Frank is so easy. However, Frank requires that you understand what a engulfing candle is. Forrest does not. Forrest is literally red dot, blue line, blue dot, blue line. All I got to do is tell somebody, hey, when you see the first red dot, enter your trade at the blue line. Or when you see your first blue dot, enter the trade at the blue line. That's all I got to say. All right, so the strategy is, let me go to a different one that doesn't have something already on the chart. Aussie Kiwi, here we go. Let's look at this downtrend. So Aussie Kiwi was here. We had our first red dots here. So we enter at our touch of the blue line, which is here. And our take profit is where we left off the trend, right? The last red dots. And our stop loss is something. The originator of the strategy says your stop loss is always the last opposing dot. That's a lot. You could say, hey, I'm going to turn my supply and demand zone, and my stop loss is going, well, there used to be a supply and demand zone here. My supply and demand zone is going to be above a supply zone. I personally use ATR. Do I have my ATR? Yes, I do have my ATR tool, my handy dandy ATR tool on the map here. And ATR on this day would, well, this ATR needs to be set at 3. Nope. ATR of 3. And boom. All right, so the ATR that day would have been here. Now, that would have been a stop out. That's fine. It happens. Let me find another one. And just to show you how the strategy works. So there's your first red dot. There's your entry. There's where your stop loss probably would have been. Actually, I take that back. Where is my tool here? So here's your first red dot, and you get a second one. So just waiting on a pullback. Finally get a touch right there. Here's our take profit. Boom. Here is our, if we're at the ATR, here's that. Maybe you got stopped off, maybe you didn't. If you put your stop up here, you absolutely did not get stopped out. So it's just this so very simple strategy. Then you got to ask yourself, hey, how many of these pullbacks do I take? I take one. Some people take all of them. That's all it is. But the originator of the strategy says this thing works best on the 1 hour chart. I've tested it. It works well on the 1 hour chart. I just do not have time to trade it manually on the 1 hour chart. And I found that while the 1 hour chart works okay with the algorithm, that the 15-minute works better. And that's just, this is what I encourage everyone out there to do. Find a simple strategy. Go out there and trade one thing, one time frame, one strategy, one market, and just learn it inside and out and build consistency. And then once it's working, then add to it. One of our members started out that way. He was just trading the cable, the pound US, traded it for several months, just the one thing. Once it proved itself and he proved that he could do it and it was all working great, and he had gotten over the hump of emotions regarding it, and he started adding things to it. Guys, I'm going to leave you with this because half of you are going to turn me off when I say this. Trading is simple. Trading is simple. It's just not easy, right? Being a successful trader is three things. Trade your plan, get out of your own way, repeat. That's it. Find a plan. Any plan can work. Find a plan, trade it with consistency. Consistency is made up of four things. Doing the same thing, the same way, the same time, every time. I'll say that again, slightly slower. Doing the same thing, the same way, the same time, every time. Trade your plan the same way, the same time, every time. I left one out. Over and over and over again, expecting the same result. And pretty soon, you have developed consistency. Consistency builds discipline. And then you go out and do whatever you want. Then you are ready to become that trading business owner as opposed to just a trader. Someone who has several strategies. I don't judge myself trade by trade, day by day, hour by hour. I generally at the end of a week say, how did this week go? But by and large, I judge how things are going, A, on a monthly basis, and B, on a portfolio basis. No one strategy should be bearing the load all the time. Collectively, they should all be giving you what I want. And for 30 minutes a day with 5 different strategies, they are. Speaking of 30 minutes a day, we are up against it. It is 3:58, and it is time to get out of here. Thank you guys for being here. If there's no questions, I'm going to see you guys all tomorrow.